Chaque Zulu avait régné quelques années avant cela. Il a reçu un traitement médical de l'une des... You see, there are certain tongue twisters, like Europeans, different, European, how is it?
Oh, this is
European,
Ça va? Ça va. Ok, très bien.
Everyone is like 3 people.
Tu mets la
Vous êtes English.
Oui. Is it prêt ou prête?
Oui, la ville de Johannesburg vous souhaite la bienvenue. Cette ville est réputée pour son hospitalité, et cette hospitalité a traversé les frontières du monde. C'est quand les colons du Cape sont venus dans cette province qui est aujourd'hui la ville de Johannesburg.
On a vu deux approches assez différentes. La demoiselle qui vient de l'agence de tourisme, et quelque chose un peu plus personnel, je pense, du point de vue de Casablanca. Okay? Ce sont deux styles différents, mais tout à fait bien le vivre.
Soudan, j'ai besoin de toilette. I'm like, Alors, si je dis le mot la mer. Bonjour à tous. Aujourd'hui, je vais parler d'Urban, comme tu vois ici. Durban avait le plus grand terminal sucre dans le monde, et en 1837, les fur trackers sont arrivés à Durban et se sont battus avec les Zulus pour la terre. Les Européens, désireux de limiter pour voir les fur trackers, se joignent à la bataille et finalement ils ont gagné. Alors chaque Zulu.
My name is Mbali Khumalo, and I am a student here at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa. And so I'm not just a student, but I'm a student activist. So it's really nice that you can follow me along on this journey, 21 years after democracy, just to see how different the situation is for a young black female today as opposed to 21, 22 years ago. It's an amazing time to be a young black female South African, because we're really at the beginning of setting up what kind of future we want for the country and the continent, and we're asking ourselves questions about how do we get there. You carry the load of generations as a black child in even post 1994. So as much as we have so many opportunities, we are not completely free. Can't I just be relaxed as a woman? Why do I always have to be like, watch my back, do you know what I mean? What it means when you get catcalled is that you are valued for your body and your body alone. That's it. So no, I don't find it flattering. I find it annoying! We're going to the almost on the Nelson Mandela Bridge right now. And the cool thing about this bridge is that it lights up at night, so it's like rainbow colored. A lot of born frees are starting to they're starting to get a bit upset with the idea of Nelson Mandela as the one liberator of our nation. I think we have a lot to be grateful for, right, with Nelson Mandela, because what he did was he brought a sense of humanity and reconciliation to the country that we so desperately need. You know, I don't care how well you can get people excited, your sense of humanity and your sense of just a common good and wanting to better your country for everyone, not just based on race and things like that, I think that really appeals to me. We wanted a president who would be good for the transitional phase of South African society. And we got that. In America, literally, they go all out. There's conversations about the forefathers, there's conversations about like the Mayflower, there's conversations about slavery, you know what I mean? They really do foster that that national dialogue on their day of independence. Yeah, what is our national identity in the context of a country that has so many different cultures, different races? Is it one national identity even possible?
Corruption is inhumane in the context of a country where so many go with nothing every day. We have to put an end to it, but we cannot do it alone. So come the 23rd, we need to show the world and show the rest of South Africa what direction the future of this country is going to go into. Amandla!
We must be able to say to our children and their great children, on the day the parliamentarians were voting to reject the report of a Chapter 9 institution, we went to the Constitutional Court. Symbolically, we held hands of one another, formed a human chain to say, not in our name.
Well, today's an interesting day because it's a part of activism called that I call on-the-ground mobilization, grassroots mobilization. So just instead of sitting in offices all day like we sometimes do, what I'm doing is handing out these flyers, these pamphlets. So please come to the anti-corruption march. Please come to the march against corruption on the 23rd. Please come on the 23rd. March against corruption. Young people, though, are harder.
If it's for a good cause, we support. But if it's for something I don't agree with, I'm like, okay.
We're going to be the ones suffering, even though we have degrees, we don't have degrees, corruption, it affects us the most. Please come on the 23rd, it's a march against corruption. Hi guys, on the 23rd, come to the march against corruption.
What if your march is actually pointless?
Yeah. Well,
there's nothing you can do about ANC with your march. You understand?
Yeah.
So what are your ideas? How's it gonna stop?
We have the power to put them up there or down here. So essentially, if we so decided today that we didn't want, if we came together as a country and said, I don't know, capitalism or democracy isn't working, I think we should change it. If the whole country came together and decided that, then the very next day gone. The very next day gone. So the whole point of the march is to say that people do have power, but people need to be together in order to make change.
There's a guy, right, who is shot in the leg. And this guy is chasing somebody that he wants to get his money. This guy's found his bag of cash. Now this guy's shot in the leg. He wants to go into a pharmacy and get some help and bandages and whatnot. But he can't just do that while he's bleeding because people are going to be scared and worried and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then what this guy then does is pulls out like some tissue paper out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Goes towards a parked car that is parked outside the pharmacy. Opens the petrol compartment, puts in the tissue, pulls out the tissue, lights up the tissue because now it's dipped with petrol. Lights up the tissue. The car then blows up. Now, everyone that's inside the pharmacy, including the people that work there, all run out to go and look at this burning car now. There's a car burning in the street. While everyone is out looking at the burning car, then he walks in, limping, finds whatever help that he needed to find, and then leaves. Nobody has seen him. Everybody's looking at the burning car.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it is very much easy to confuse people. And when there is chaos, then political opportunities arise.
So, I cannot fault you. You're absolutely correct. But what I would challenge you then is like, what is your solution? So if not a march against corruption, what do we need to do? Because we do need to do something.
I encourage your march and encourage your idea about stopping corruption. But you're not going to tell me that, let's say my wife, and let's say I'm a rapper, needs studio time or whatever. I'm not auditioning South Africa. I'm putting my wife on. I am not auditioning people and then selecting fairly. Nah, my wife needs to blow up first. You know what I mean? If my nigga, even if he's whack on the rhymes, if my nigga needs to be put on, I'm putting on my nigga. I'm not putting on the doper
Put
tag.
him on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you look after your own. You look after your own.
Exactly.
Self-interest, like self-interest. It happens everywhere.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is a good idea that is against human nature. It's a moral thing. And there's points where morality we can sweep under the carpet and then continue doing our nonsense.
Yeah. My thing is, and I completely agree with you, you have to empower your people. You don't just get paid alone and then say, well, you know, great knowing you guys, even though you helped me right to the top, but I'm the one earning the money, so, you know, bye. That would be ridiculous. What we're saying is, you get paid, your brother needs to get paid, but your brother does not need to get paid 10 billion rand so that it's like fed out of the pockets of, like, you know, the people who actually need it. Your brother doesn't need to get paid in a way that is greedy. Pay your brother by training your brother and making sure that when he does get that little deal, you know, that could set him up, that it's actually a deal that's not going to just benefit your brother. It's going to benefit the guy on the street. It's going to benefit, I don't know, like the woman walking across the street. It's going to benefit people. Don't just pay your brother because he's your brother. Lift him up.
No, I feel you, but what I'm saying is that fairness is a good idea for utopia. We don't live in utopia.
Yeah.
We live in an unfair world. You understand? This is the real world, and the real world that we live in is unfair.
In the world, we want different things. And in order to, you know, like our government system is basically there to make everyone happy. That's the idea, right? It's just like no poverty, nothing, we'll take care of this, everyone will be happy. But in a world where people have different interests and people have different ideas about what is right and what is wrong, that's what complicates it.
I feel you. Good luck.
Thank you. So.
Let's have a tea break.
Dear Corruption Watch, there are candidates in our governing body that are abusing our funds. I don't think they are part of this move. please help someone investigate these guys.
All right, I want to speak to my lawyer.
So Corruption Watch was started in 2012 by COSATU, interestingly enough. But after it was started by COSATU, a decision was taken that it should be registered as an independent entity, so that if there is corruption within the trade unions, then they can be investigated. So it's a very independent platform. We've got no relationship with COSATU at this point. They just contributed to the formation of the organization. We are not an investigative body. Most people think that we are an investigative body. They call today to say, I'm reporting corruption. The following day you call saying, how far are you with the investigation?
What we really want to do is get like 100,000 people this year. We want it to be a really, really huge social statement, because what we realize is if you show unity with an issue, if you say, well, really, most of the country is united and we want to change this, then it sends the right message. As you said earlier, it's not about personalities or an individual. We want to change the culture of the country. And in order to do that, we need a sense of unity around that.
The Corruption March, so you guys made these cute little videos of people endorsing it, like Zelda Lagrange, somebody who had her racist breakdown, right? And I'm just wondering, are we saying that, okay, we want you guys there, even with those who don't see your place in this country? Do you know what I mean? I will say that a lot of the organizations or the organizers, they haven't been a part of it. When collusion within the private sector, when Salga screwed our municipalities over, didn't do anything about that. No? But right now we talk about accountability on the other side. From where I'm standing, it's very black and white, because the one who's being ignored has a very white face. So it's again, you excluding, you are pointing, and you excluding me as an affected. So for me, that's just, and I will tell you now, I would rather march in a 5-man march that embraces my identity, that embraces the identity of the majority of this country, than 100,000 one that has racists and sexists and homophobes endorsing.
The tricky part of all the questions that we've been asking, which I think is Koketso, Tato, and the other question is, march then what? Do you think having a slogan like pay back the money would something that resonate with you to participate in this march? Because other people would say, for us to not have corruption in the country, we need to deal with the leadership.
My question is, maybe I don't understand. Please enlighten me if I'm wrong. So if this one is is it a march or is it a fun walk?
Just in my personal involvement with the march, following on how you laid the discussion, if you say pay back the money, I'm not gonna come in, I'm not gonna recruit people to come through.
Extending on what Koketso said, we need to link the struggles. Corruption does not stand alone. It's also a part of the broader aspect of all the other things we're entangled in currently, the race issues, homophobes, as you mentioned. So those need to be accounted for here. We can't just speak about corruption on its own.
I'm a young person as well, I'm a black person as well, I'm a female as well. There's no, this side or that side. What I do is, why I sit in these spaces, is so that I can get the views here and then go back to the steering committee and say, people are not gonna, want to march if you have a homophobe, sitting like as one of your representatives. And then I will do the job that I need to do and just fight for that.
Like I said, corruption is political.
It's a political
It's political, and in order to deal with this effectively, we need those people who do. I wonder, Mr. Vavi, if it wasn't for this issue with him.
It's important to say.
Yeah.
It's important to address this thing.
Yes.
I mean,
Corruption is political. He was
Which
very.
part of corruption is political?
No, look, we're looking at the public space. Like, when we speak about corruption, we're talking about governance. Who are those guys? Those guys are comrades. They're politicians. Every politician. I mean, like, I'm from the hood, Kokasi, from Soweto. I mean, what kind of corruption can I necessarily commit and affect a large number of people, except if you are a politician? So Mr. Vavi have been very loud on corruption, been very outspoken. But now with the with the recent decision, with the cost tooling, or 10 of events, or one. It's just a mixture. People don't want to get associated with them. But he's a great man. But we need someone from government with clean audits.
Guys, we need help.
What do you think about corruption?
Corruption. It's such a pity that we really can't do anything about it because the top guys are corrupt. So yeah, we all against corruption, but at the end of the day, we need someone to take a real stand and not just say no to corruption and then go back home.
Yeah.
We need people to get out there, show their views and everything.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm not that person. I would like someone to, I'm not that person, but I would love someone to do that. I'll support the person if it's possible. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Do you think generally like young people like care about participating in these things?
They act like they don't care, but it actually affects them most. Our parents are old now. Corruption or no corruption, they're old. We're still young, we have to grow. We still need connections. So if you know someone who accepts people, let's say we're applying for the same job, you know the inside man, I don't, but I have more qualifications than you. Corruption, you're like, yo, I need this, you get it. So the youth is slacking, I won't lie. We're focusing on the wrong things.
What are we focusing on?
We're focusing on a good time, getting high, booze, women, guys, parties. And at the end of the day, that doesn't really get you anywhere.
Do you think there's like in 20 years when we're like the 40-year-olds sitting in, corporate South Africa, do you think we're going to make better decisions? Do you think we are going to be in charge?
It depends. If you stay true to yourself, you can. But if the up guys control you, what can you do? But do you think we're free?
I don't think you're free unless you're economically free. So you can't be free and poor at the same time.
Yo, bro, you guys need to pull through, yo. You don't remember me, ne?
From when?
I invited you to Sunny Fridays to come jam with us, bro.
No, you didn't.
23 Fox, I did. On before. You're skating down. Remember when we were giving out chocolates?
That's all like
These are the niggas. Oh, now we don't have chocolates. But like, why would I say come jam?
I'm Smash. Smash Africa. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, Google my shit.
You too, dog. What's your name, bro?
Keith.
Keith.
Yeah.
Oh, so keep.
Wait. I'm gonna buzz you now, my boy.
I don't understand. I'm a skateboarder too, yet I was completely excluded from an invitation.
Oh, for real? The same way Menzi did not see me with a board, he assumed that I didn't skate. What's happening? You skate for real, right? You didn't just say it to me.
She taught me how to kickflip.
Yeah, I think she does.
She taught me how to kickflip.
For real? You skate? What's your name?
Yo, I gotta run. Anyway, shot, guys. See you on the 27th.
All right.
Cool, man. Shot.
Bye.
Right?
I think it was this year that 1 in every 3 women are like sexually abused or like raped in South Africa. So like me, when I walk across the street, like there's a 33% chance that like I'm gonna be sexually violated. That's not normal, that's not normal. And it's not normal that I constantly have to feel like I'm under threat, just going from like class to my house or walking to get milk, etc. It's not okay. Like it's not okay that I constantly have to worry about my safety. When men or when black men have these issues and they're being oppressed, I'm with them. If they're marching for something, I'm marching with them. But who's there for me? Who marches for me? When I'm like literally constantly in danger every second of the day, like there's that 33% chance. Who's there for me? So I think now women, slowly but surely young women in South Africa in particular, are starting to say, hold on a second, we're part of this stuff too. You know, we're the majority. There are more women in South Africa than there are men. So we can shake things up, we can change things. We have to.
You know, I think the biggest cost of corruption is counted in the mistrust that develops in government, in business. You know, when you don't trust the people who are meant to keep you safe, or the people who are meant to guard your savings, or the people who break your bread, or do things that your everyday life depends on, and you no longer trust them, you're in dire straits, and that's the greatest cost of corruption. So, you know, for the ordinary citizen, you know, what public officials do they encounter in their daily life over any given year? You encounter a traffic cop, you encounter somebody in the city council offices, you encounter somebody in the traffic licensing department, and all of them have got their hand out. And so you're reaching conclusions about the state of public officialdom and the state of the public sector in South Africa that are really devastating. And so you start to feel hopeless about it. You stop going to vote in elections because you think it won't make any difference. And sooner or later, you have a completely demobilized, inactive society. Now, I don't think we've gotten there yet. I mean, the one good thing about South Africans, especially young South Africans actually, is that they really don't believe that there's any problem that they can't solve. So let's see.
That confidence, good old born-free confidence.
Yeah.
Going back to your early 20s, could you imagine South Africa being the way it is now? Were you thinking like the born-frees are thinking these days? Like, what are the fundamental differences?
Yeah. I mean, the differences are huge. I grew up, and they were kind of liberal people. I suppose my parents, you know, would have been amongst the few people in that town who say would have voted for the Progressive Party. But that's as far as their politics went. But it was a kind of politics that would not have not wanted me to be involved in student politics or any of those sorts of things, which a lot of white parents, and I'm sure black parents, didn't want their children to be involved in. So, you know, when I came to WITS, which was a great institution, and it's becoming a great institution again, actually, you know, that was a real eye-opener and a real liberator. But I mean, circumstances were completely different. I mean, there wasn't hardly a black student on WITS campus, you know. But WITS didn't used to be barred off from Johannesburg, barricaded off from Johannesburg in the way in which it is now.
Was it completely open?
Yeah, there were never walls around the campus. It was completely open.
Talk to me about that, because I know quite a lot of, you know, we do have young people who are confident about, you know, the future and confident that we can change things. But there are also those who are pretty much, they've thrown in the towel and said that I just need to get this degree, do well in third year, and I'm gone. Europe, America, wherever, because I just can't deal with this. The system is completely against me. Like, what do you think about that?
I imagine that when you start to feel despairing, there's not much support around you, and so you start to think, so how will I resolve my dilemma? I will leave the country, or I will go and get a degree at a university. That having been said, you know, I think leaving the country for a while and seeing what there is out there in the world and going to a really good American or European or, you know, African university for that matter, I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
Are you from Johannesburg?
Yes, I am. So, like, grew up in Soweto, and then went to Glen Vista for a while for high school, and then Rodin for like the rest of the time, but except that year that I was in the States. But coming back to South Africa, 21 years into democracy, and at WITS or in high school, I still see that racial divide, whether it be because of socioeconomic issues or whatever. But it's still, you know, we're still really not mixed.
The sort of narrative of the anti-apartheid struggle was non-racialism, and it would have had to have been. I mean, the narrative of apartheid was race, the narrative of its opposition was going to be non-race. And then when we achieved democracy, we were going to be a sort of democracy free of racial definition and racial tension. We were going to be a rainbow nation. And you know, as I said earlier, so that narrative has not been vindicated, if that's the correct term. You know, partly because I think there were very few material concessions made by whites, and you know, the ANC and the leadership of democratic South Africa had itself to blame for that to some extent as well. I mean, they should have known that whites would have taken far more than they said that they would accept to avert what they all expected would be the nature of change in South Africa, and that is a bloodbath. They weren't getting the bloodbath. They would have paid plenty not to get the bloodbath, I promise you. And they didn't have, they weren't called upon to do so, because it was thought that this would alienate them, it would drive them out of the country, it would lead to a bloodbath. And the chickens are coming home to roost now. And oddly, it would have been easier to make those concessions in '94 than to achieve those concessions in '94 than it is to achieve now, because by now, you know, the elite, even though all of the whites may be in the elite, not all of the elite are whites, and that makes reform, you know, in the name of deracialization, quite a complex business.
You're optimistic about the end of corruption?
No, I feel pretty positive about our ability to hold government to account.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the end of corruption, I think there's never going to be an end of corruption.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Mbali to read our statement to you, and then we'll take questions from you for the panel.
2 days ahead of the first in a series of protest actions against corruption in South Africa on 30 September in Pretoria, Cape Town and other cities around the country, the Unite Against Corruption Coalition today released a statement in response to NEDLAC's decision not to grant us our right to have a protected strike action for workers on 30 September, but on a later date, and committed that the march would continue despite this attempt.
You see this issue of in NEDLAC, isitshengisa ukuthi we have got our opposing forces. There are people who do not want to be exposed through this campaign, corruption. Because we say, let's unite against corruption, like we united during the time against apartheid. Apartheid was a corrupt system, and people stood up, from students to elders and neighboring countries. But we are surprised to see the NEDLAC not being granted for the workers to exercise their right in the campaign against corruption.
And one of the cornerstones of our Labour Relations Act is the right of workers to participate in socio-economic strikes, as long as they have given notice, they have outlined what their demands are, it's been clarified that their demands could not be met. And the practice has always been up to now, once that happens, to allow people to go forward. So it's a cynical move, and it's a very sinister move, and it's a move that will definitely backfire on government. There's no question about it.
Good afternoon, you're back with us on the Daily Maverick Show on Cliff Central. As usual, I'm Kingsley Kipuri, and I'll be with you for the next just a couple of minutes. We'll be talking about the anti-corruption march that's happening tomorrow. It's being billed as sort of the biggest event and biggest march in post-apartheid South Africa. So we really want to dig into what's happening tomorrow, and I hear there's a follow-up sometime in October, so I really want to dig into that. We're joined in studio, of course, with Greg, who was here for the first hour. We're also joined by ex-General Secretary of COSATU, as well as Zuma Vavi, and Mbali Khumalo from Students for Law and Justice.
Social justice.
For social justice, very different. Welcome to the show to both of you.
Thank you very much.
We took the idea to the unions, and the unions said this is something that we should be doing.
the unions convened a meeting with the civil society. 29 civil society organizations came to say that's what we should be doing. And from 29 now to over 250 civil society organization, incredible support, and we're quite excited, and we having this conversation with you on the eve of the march, and I can tell you that we absolutely exhausted. We have been doing work, and I was joking with Mbali outside to say, when will the struggle come to an end?
She doesn't look like she's struggling. Mbali, you're making it work somehow.
A happy countenance, always. We came and planned the march and said this is the People's March, and because the workers aren't going to be there, we're going to show up anyway, and we're going to show up for them too, so that when they have it on the 14th and they're there legally, we're going to be there too, and we're going to support them in any way that we can. As it was said earlier, as Vavi so well put it, this is really a process. It's a process. Corruption is not going to end on the 1st of August just because we march. But we're showing that we're committed to starting this conversation in a productive way, in a way that's going to make sure that however long it takes and however many obstacles are thrown at us, we're committed to making sure that this is really dealt with. So I think just in terms of the NUMSA, the workers not being there, they're with us in spirit. We know we've organized for them to be there before the NEDLAC issue, so we know that we have their full support. This is just the beginning. It really is just the beginning. So everything's fine. Yeah.
It's a setback that unions will not be allowed to be to embark on the strike tomorrow, but the workers are allowed to participate in the march. It's a perfectly legal march. Anyone who can negotiate with the employer nicely this afternoon and say, I will really want to participate.
Please make sure to download the podcast and share it far and wide.
And subscribe.
And subscribe on iTunes. We'll see the march tomorrow. Will it be 100 people? Will it be 100,000? Only one way to find out.
King, will you be there?
I will discuss with my employer and see if I can make it. Perfect. We'll see you next
Oh, wait, that's it.
Yeah. That was good. That's good.
So you're going to be there, right?
I think so.
I mean,
that's my employer.
That cannot be the line.
That's the line.
Sohlala sizingelo nje kuhle kwezinyamazane sohlala sizingelo thina kuhle kwezinyamazane hayi lo mhlaba sakhokhela thina sikhokhela umhlaba obaba lo mhlaba sakhokhela thina sikhokhela ifa lethu asohlala sizingelwa thina yeyi kuhle kwezinyamazane asohlala sizingelwa thina yeyi kuhle kwezinyamazane.
So it's the day of the march and I'm feeling unwell. stomach. My thing is like, what happens next?
Discrimination against
I'm already on that.
students.
What
We are
happens
saying we
next?
want the money. He's saying we want corruption gone. We want a better South Africa. We pledge as students for law and social justice.
As evidence that we rejected.
Pre-94, you know, the marches that happened, people were really united about it because it came from a place of like, this is it, like we almost have like nothing. I don't want to say we have nothing to lose, but we're basically illegal in our own country. Like, of course we're gonna march and we're all gonna show up. Of course we're gonna take radical measures.
It's not that my general knowledge is good, but it's not that good. There's this kind of special generation, which is my generation. We were old enough to acutely be affected by apartheid, but young enough to be able to transcend a lot of things and take advantage of the democratic dispensation. When you come from that kind of environment, you know, you understand more acutely, I guess, than even a Braun Free, the effects of structural injustice.
Absolutely.
Because you've lived the reality of structural injustice. But if you've still got structures and systems, which we happen to have, by the way, getting onto the corruption argument, if you've still got structures and systems that facilitate an ethos and an ethic of corruption, you're just almost expecting too much from, quote unquote, the ordinary person to have such a high bar of morality that they're not being checked by structures and systems.
Yeah, this is the first time I've actually spoken during this documentary to, you know, a successful black female, or South African female, who, you know, who is within these structures and these institutions that we so badly need to transform. So could you talk to me about just your experience within these structures and how it's been like for the past 21 years? You know, just in your experience.
You know, at the beginning of our democracy, we all know that it was a magical time, for lack of a better term. And I think we definitely had intimations and reverberations of that during those 10 days of us mourning the loss of Utata in 2013 it now was, Kairos moments in time, and the fact that here I was, and I think, okay, so it was 1994. I was born in 72. So how old was I? 72, 82, 92. I was 22. When we had the first democratic elections. And I went home, I was studying at Wits, and I went home to vote. And it was a magical, I had to, it was kind of like, I can't vote in Joburg, I've got to go back, gotta go back home.
Exactly.
This is my first
came
vote.
back too. I was in Cape Town and I was like, gotta go back home.
Gotta go back home.
Yeah.
Gotta go back home. So I went to KZN, And I remember that in front of me was this old gogo who, and I'm saying old gogo intentionally because a gogo's old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But she was an old gogo. And she had a walking stick and she could hardly see. And she went, and you could see that she was going to be assisted to make her cross. And that was a kairos moment in time, a magical, frozen moment in time, you know, where everything is exactly the way it is and time stands still. You know, he says our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting, and he says the soul that rises within us, our life star, health elsewhere it's setting. He says from trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. And then he says heaven lies about us in our infancy, you know. And I think you can't say it better when you talk about where we were as South Africa in those days. It was heaven lying about us in our infancy. Then he says, but shades of the prison house begin to close in on the growing boy. And so it's a human experience for sure. As it is a national experience and a country experience, and it can even be a continental experience where you start off in beauty and in glory, and the reality of life starts to bother you, and you get clouded, and those shades of the prison house start closing in on you. You get to a point where you need to figure out whether you squander your freedom, because what's required of you when you are finally free is even more than what's required of you than when you're fighting for freedom.
Oh, absolutely. That's powerful.
You with me? Things are not the way they should be, ideally. You know what I'm trying to say? Because ideally we should know where to place you as young people in order for the nation to benefit and in order for you guys to flourish. We don't. That's the sad news, right? But I always say that my greatest moment of epiphany came when I realized that I choose to stay in South Africa, not because South Africa needs me. I went through about 10 years of my life saying, you know, if people like me leave the country, you know what I'm trying to say? You know, and then you critique the Zimbabweans, you know? If more Zimbabweans who are educated and stay, you know, that kind of critique. I can't leave because if we leave because we have options, what about those who have no options? We have a responsibility to pull. So I went through that for about a decade of my life, feeling South Africa needs me, right? But my greatest epiphany was I stay not because South Africa needs me, but because I need South Africa. And I stay in Africa because I need Africa.
Talk to me about that.
And I suddenly realized that in this place of struggle, in this place of wrestle, in this place of being exposed to injustices and such seemingly harsh and cruel realities of being and existence and living, it's in this place that I wrestle deeply with what it means to be human, with what it means to creatively engage in the process of being a human being. It's in this place where there are so many dichotomies, so many contrasts, so many things that are not the way things should be. It's in this space that we engage with the chaos and the struggles of what it means to be human. It's in this place that I find the depths of my ability.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I'm realizing that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like at the beginning of this year, my plan was, because I had seen with my mom, you know, she went from like some high-powered, like, you know, civil servant, and then because of like dodgy dealings really in government, we lost it all, like just like that. You know what I mean? And in the space of 9 months, there wasn't a person who could compromise, you know, their own comfort to change the situation. But it did change. And I remember just afterwards, even though we had learned lessons about humanity, particularly my mother, I think that's when she had that mental shift about what mattered in life. So I think she did need to go that. But I remember just after that thinking, I said to myself, once I'm done at Wits, like I'm out of here. You know, every year I get a plane ticket from my host family from when I was a high schooler to come back. You know, so I go back during the holiday. What do you want? Internships? It's easier there for me. And having gone through that experience, I was like, the system is not, you know, there's no space for clearly, there's no space for me to do it in the right way or to thrive in a healthy way. So let me go where I'm valued. So it does take, yeah, I'm really glad I heard that because like I could have been gone.
We are here as the Peace Must Fall collective. As you must know, the skaters know, the skaters don't know. So right now we are saying that, can we call a meeting of all concerned students, whether or not you're affected by fees or not, whether or not you're affected by accommodation or not. Let us meet in front of the Great Hall Piat, and so we move comrades. Amanda!
We have been called over and over again that we are the lost generation. We are not the lost generation. We have found what to fight for. We have found a common cause.
76, we fought against education not being equal for all. In 2016, we're fighting for fees. The fight does not come to an end, and we are saying today that it must come to an end. We are saying we are here, we're young and alive, we are ready to sleep.
Comrades, tomorrow, the president of the country will be in Union Building. We are going there. Amanda!
So today is day 8 of the Fees Must Fall protest, and a lot's been happening. I mean, we've just marched to Lutuli House, which is the ANC headquarters, and the Secretary General, we made him sit, well, we demanded that he come down to our level and receive the memorandum we have written for him. And what's on the memorandum is we want no fee increments. So this whole thing of the fees going up by 10.5%, we want none of that. And we're not going to settle. I mean, this is day 8. We've shut down the university here for over a week now. And all over the country, universities are completely closed because of this protest. So we're serious. And we're not quitting. We're not quitting until it's 0%. We're actually being very, very, very kind. It shouldn't just be 0% fee increase that we're asking for. It should be free education.
Abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. So the gain need not be in the form of a bribe. It could be anything. In terms of our own prevention and combating of corrupt activities Act, I think Section 1 defines corruption, which if I were to summarize it, I would say that it says corruption is influencing or being influenced by someone to make a dishonest decision for gratification.
But there's a poster or from a newspaper
by the way.
of Nelson Mandela.
For any human being
to be in that position, you know. I don't know, quite frankly, I don't know how he did it, you know, but I think the essence of what makes Mandela is that he related and connected to people as people. I think for me, more than anything else, you know, that's how you relate to people, that's how barriers are broken, right? If you come guarded or you come carrying a position, you know, that's where barriers are actually lifted. So for me, my assessment of Madiba magic is that aspect of humanity, right? And accessibility as well. You know, I think, you know, sometimes you're put in positions and sometimes people forget that actually you're put in positions by other people. You know, it's not like you just, you place yourself there. And he never seemed to forget that. And there are so many funny stories about, you know, when people came to interview him and actually asked, oh, so what is this about, you know? So actually it's about you, Tata, you know, because he didn't have that thing that he's this big guy or whatever. He remained a humble person. He remained true to himself. He remained true to his values. And I know sometimes, you know, because there was so much expectations, people felt like, oh, it's a letdown because, you know, with so much influence that he had, you know, we could have achieved more. But I'm saying, you know, there's always a time. He came he took power in a situation where maybe had it been a different leader, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today. So that's how we look at it, you know, because sometimes we expect so much as if like you could have, you know, had a magic wand to make everybody happy. But we know that's not reality. So what you take is the legacy that he left us. And one of the legacies that he left us to say, embrace everybody. Take the time to understand somebody else from his position or her position, because that already, you know, makes it easy for people to start to engage openly.
You know, there's this whole myth that like people who aren't going into law and medicine aren't going into it just because they couldn't get in. But literally some people just have no desire. Some people just want to study English. And I think that's okay. Can we produce a Nobel Peace Prize, you know, a laureate or something, you know?
And how are your results?
They're quite good. They're quite good. I'm happy with myself, especially because I do so much like outside of school. Okay, I will say this. So the benchmark to get into postgrad honors degree is 65% in South Africa, and I get above that. So good enough.